First of all, let's just look at what this is about. Like this framework, this story-centric story selling framework, I call it the perfect story selling framework. So it's designed essentially that, have you heard the phrase hero's journey before?
Yeah.
So this is, we're going to replace that word with buyer's journey. That way we can kind of feel this out as we go. But this framework, it can be used for email. It can be used for blog posts. It can be for social media, for your podcast. I don't care what your business. If you are providing a solution to a problem, this framework works, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I've dealt with every category, whether it's, for-profit, nonprofit, whether it's for a Shopify store, whether it's for digital assets. It can be for a service provider, local service providers, whatever it is. If you're solving a problem, this framework works. So first of all, I'm going to say, let's just do kind of an overview of story structure for movies. And that way, these are the 9 steps actually, and it's going to be really succinct, and then we'll expand it out. And I won't tell you like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just kind of read it to you here. I have it right on my screen. But first, you have a hero, think Frodo, right? Or, something like that, and who encounters an evil adversary or a challenging problem. So we're just dropping this into cinematic language. Mm-hmm. And that hero is called to take action, but is afraid. So again, if we go back to Frodo, he never left a Shire before. And so when he does go out on his journey, he's taking a step out of the Shire for the first time. They meet a wise mentor who understands their pain and fear, not necessarily in that order. Of course, Gandalf is the one who came to Frodo, right? They provide a magical plan to conquer the problem, which ultimately propels that hero to take action. And that action leads to a showdown, like the Old West. This town ain't big enough for the 2 of us, which ends in either decisive victory and reward or tragic failure and loss. In that little paragraph I just read, there's 9 bullet points. So we'll break that apart really quick here so that you can understand how this all applies in business or nonprofit, whatever it is. So step 1 and 2 of the framework, I like to call this, check this out. This is where it all makes sense with what we were just saying. I call this section like these 2 pieces launch with the villain, because in motion pictures, a hero, again, we're back to that motion picture language. A hero always encounters an evil adversary or challenging problem. Now, when I was geeking out in film school over story structure, I realized a weird pattern that I've never heard before. But here it is, a high percentage of top grossing films of all time, like these are the biggest of the big, they launched with the villain. Perfect example, the original Star Wars, what happens first? Leia's been kidnapped. And she's been kidnapped by the villain, right? And if you think of Lion King, when I watched that with my kids, the first character to speak is Scar. It's the bad guy. That's a real bad spoiler alert, although it's the bad guy right away. So it's not really a spoiler alert. But what that meant in the third world country would be that we would launch with the problem, or like the problems that we were encountering. It might be the story of an orphan child. It might be the story of a malnourished, family who desperately needs support. But let's bring this to a business though. Let's say you're a bankruptcy attorney and your hero's under the threat of bankruptcy, right? So again, your hero is the viewer. You might start a video script by saying something like, are you overwhelmed by the threat of bankruptcy? And you're under a constant barrage of phone calls from your creditors. You might say something, are you sick? I like to deal with the emotion too. Are you sick with worry that you might lose your home and everything you own? Right. So like so we've launched with a villain and we've introduced the hero indirectly by talking about them. So you got to remember, like, that's the hard separation sometimes in this, but if you can just get your mind around, you're talking to the hero and they're included in that statement. So again, there's a lot of twisting and weaving with what I just did there, but it still works. Right. So that's the first and second step. You're introducing a hero and the adversary or the challenging problem. Right. So that also identifies with the hero, because you're also letting them know they're in the right place at the right time. If I said, hey, is your barn falling apart? And you go, I don't own a barn, I'm out of here. Boom. They didn't waste my time or yours. If you had a barn that's falling apart, you're stopped cold in your track. Like, I don't know why I came up with that one, but that's what I don't know whose barn's falling apart or whether that would matter. So the third and fourth step, I'm kind of funneling through this a little bit. In motion pictures, it's when the hero is called, they're always called to deal with the problem but they're afraid.
Mm.
That's so key. I'll go ahead and finish that out. They meet a wise mentor who understands that pain and fear. They are afraid, and the mentor does what? They understand their pain and fear. So Luke meets Yoda, Frodo meets Gandalf, things like this. This is me in my weird, twisted way in Haiti, figuring all this stuff out. My synapses were on fire to solve this thing. But I want to mention that most business owners, they don't understand this, what I just said. They don't get that your customers external, they do get it, but they don't know how to apply it, right? They know that the external problem, my roof is effing leaking, and it has been over the weekend, and I couldn't get in touch with anybody. I'm frustrated because is there going to be mold in my house, right? So it leads to an internal pain. And by being this vulnerable mentor who understands that external challenge causes an internal pain, if they understand that you understand them, it leads to the know, like, and trust factor. It's such a weird, intuitive thing. But whenever I say, Jake, man, I know like that you're afraid to go on camera, since my business is all video related. I get, and I'm not saying you are, I don't think you are, but if I knew that's what was going on, man, I get it, man. When I was in grad school, we had this speech class. First day they just did an impromptu speech, and the only thing I remember was my head was shaking so bad it was going to fall off. But I also remember how stupid I felt afterwards. I have no idea what I said during that speech. So I get that this fear of public speaking, fear of going on camera, they kind of go together, and it's the biggest fear on the planet. So now that you understand, I understand you, there's a rapport that can be built, you know? So that's part of that. But if we were revisiting that bankruptcy attorney, how do we address that? That the hero must take action to deal with the problem, but they're afraid. We might say something like, listen, it's only natural to feel frustration and concern or anxiety about one word or the other, something like that, about financial struggles, but worrying about your home, that's going to put you under even more stress that you already feel. And the threat of bankruptcy is just not something you want to take lightly, and you're going to need special legal assistance. So we're hand-holding them, and it's starting to introduce, without having introduced myself yet, right, as the mentor or the guide. But then that is about when you give them that little opportunity, and you're saying, I understand you, and what you need now is this thing that I'm going to share with you. That's actually what I do. And so I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. I'm just kind of making this up, but we might say something. Hey, I'm Jake Smith, and I'm a specialist bankruptcy attorney. And over the past X amount of years, 12 years, it's been my greatest passion to have guided hundreds of people just like you through this bankruptcy process for a fresh start. Because I would think like something like a fresh start would be good for somebody because they're trapped in this thing, right? I would use language that would help us go that way. But that's the third and fourth step. The hero meets a wise mentor that understands their pain and fear. And then for the fifth step, the hero meets that wise and understanding mentor who provides the magical plan to conquer the problem. And this is like, I guess with this weird bankruptcy attorney, I'm talking about like a really short, fast script, like a 60-second sales video, right? Because I'm just doing one or two sentences for each section, but I'm showing you how that would apply. But for us in that third world country, what that meant to demonstrate that magical solution, we would show how the medical clinic helps save the sick, or how the orphanage provides a home. Really simple stuff, literally demonstrating why our solution is magical. This kid is going to die, or he's not going to have a home. And this solution over here, it's really straightforward, right? Very, very simple. The key here when writing a script or an email or a blog post is to introduce your magical plan. You got to have that. I think if you can figure out how to make this thing magical so that external problem that they have is solved, you do this by helping the hero literally visualize how it's going to, how it solves the future, the problem in the future. So an orphanage being built solves the homeless, right? That's really an easy example. I guess for the attorney, he or she might say, in many cases, this has got to be true, you can't just make this stuff up, but if in many cases with the people that we deal with or that we've helped, we've navigated we've negotiated with your hard-nosed creditors and help people avoid bankruptcy altogether. You know what I mean? Like so the idea is avoidance. We're avoiding the bankruptcy issue. and we'll navigate and negotiate that for you. Because we know, if somebody's going through bankruptcy, they're being called every day. And that's almost like the shame that somebody could feel like. But then you might say something like, with that handled, it's always about the emotions, because people buy emotionally too. With that handled, you can stop living in fear of losing everything you own and get your financial situation back in order and in control. And you can start enjoying your friends and family and your life again, because that's what you're starting to lose in that too. You feel like you're losing those things in a bankruptcy circumstance. I haven't gone through it, but I can only imagine, right? So that's kind of the step 5 of how to showcase your magical plan and conquer that. You want to conquer that hero's problem that they're having. And that leads to, let's see, step 6 and 7. I'm going to kind of lump those together. It's that magical plan should compel the hero to take action. And so in Haiti, what we would do is literally after we showcased like that orphanage, we would do a clear, concise, strong call to action. And what's cool about that is that because we're doing the other steps, we're launching with a villain, and we're introducing that we understand, we understand them and they understand us now. And there's a know, like, and trust. How we would do that in Haiti, by the way, is we would tell why we were passionate. I had a passion section in that. We'd tell why we were passionate to solve the problem, which helped the user or the viewer identify with us. And then by this point, what happens is you're literally like, you can just start to sell what you're offering, because you've done all those other steps. It's all logical. It's laid out really organic. It strips the feeling out of being salesy and schmarmy, because you're talking about passion. You're talking about solving a problem. You're talking about the emotions that come along with it. And if you do this wrong, it can come off as schmarmy. But if you're doing it from a place of authority and passion, it really isn't. But we would just make an offer to the issue, right?